to work out the different types of averages. So you've got three different types of averages, or three different types of data that you could be given. So the first one's in raw form, which is this one here, where you've just got a list of numbers. So for example, if I said to you, can you all tell me your shoe size? Then you might have given me this data. The second type of data is if it's in a frequency table, which is basically the same as raw data. It's just that because we've got lots more repeated values and the data set's bigger, we can condense it down into a frequency table to make it easier to read. So for example, here we had 1, 2, 3 13s. So I've just put that I've got 3 13s and so on. And then the last one is grouped data, which again tends to be associated with a bigger sample size. And it's where you're looking at, instead of having specific data, if it's continuous, then you don't want to have every single thing listed, and therefore you say anything between 0 and 10, and between 10 and 20, and so on. Okay, so depending on what your data is, will depend on how it's kind of organized. But each of those formats we can use to work out the averages on a GDC. So the first thing you're going to need to do is click on the spreadsheet, this green one. And then we can put the data in. So if we look at the raw one first, I'm just going to call it raw, I don't know what it was. Then I've got 5, 8, 4, 10, 6, 4, and 7. So they're my 7 sets of data. And then we can work out the averages from that. Now, obviously, with raw data, it's very quick and easy just to do it by hand anyway. But if you wanted to do it on your GDC, then you go to Menu, Statistics, and Stats Calculations. And then it's a one variable statistic. So the variable might have been shoe size, in which case you've got one variable. So the first thing it's going to do is ask where the X data is, and that's called raw. So it's just saying where's the data. The frequency list is 1, because I've got 1, 5, 1, 8, 1, 4, 1, 10, and so on. And then I click OK. And then in here I get loads of information about my data, so I can find the mean. So X bar is the symbol that the mean is used. So the mean is 6.28. If I wanted it, the sum of X, so adding them all together, gives me 44. So if I wanted to do it by hand, it's 44 divided by 7. I can also find my standard deviation, which we'll look at more in a few lessons' time. But this is a standard deviation, if you needed that, 2.05, and it's a measure of spread. So it looks at how spread out your data is. It's similar to a range. We've also got how many data points we've got, so 7 data points. And then this is really helpful for any sort of box plots. It gives you the minimum value, the lower quartile, the median, the upper quartile, and the maximum, so that you've then got that if you needed to do any sort of box plot for it as well. So that's how to do the raw data. If you were then doing the frequency table, it's the same sort of idea. So we're going to go into the spreadsheet, and then we're going to type the data in. So it looks like this one's called mistakes. And then this is my frequency. So the mistakes are 13, 14, 15, and 16. And then the frequency is 3, 4, 2, and 1. And then really similar to what we did last time, we've got menu, statistics, and stats calculations. And then again, it's just one variable. We've got one variable, which is the number of mistakes, and then we've got frequency, which isn't a variable, it's just telling me how many I've got. And then we click OK, and it's saying the data, the X, the variable, is where. So that's the one called mistakes. And this time, the frequency list isn't 1 every time. Otherwise, I'd have just 4 sets of data, 1 13, 1 14, 1 15, 1 16. Instead, the frequency has actually been written in the column called frequency. And then I click OK. And again, I've got the mean, so 14.1. I've got my standard deviation, if I wanted it, 0.94. And then I've got my minimum, lower quartile, upper quartile, maximum, and median. Okay. So we now need to delete the information we've got, just so that it's, otherwise, because I'm going to call the next one frequency as well, it's going to get confused. So if I press Control and the up arrow, it brings me up all of these different windows I've got open. If you've never cleared your GDC, you might want to do this because it will make it work a lot faster. And then we just press delete, and it will just clear what we've got in there. The other way of doing that is if you've got something open and you don't want to use the same variables the second time, is you can go to document and you can do insert and you can do a new problem, and a new problem kind of resets all your variables. So instead of it called 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, it'll be called 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. So it gives it like a new question number. So that's quite useful to do in exams where you don't want to delete everything, but you want to kind of keep resetting everything. This time we're going to use the grouped frequency data, but it's exactly the same sort of process again. So we're going to go to our spreadsheet and type in. So this time we've got journey, time to school, and then again frequency. And it's not picking up what I've previously used because I've already deleted it. If it's already populating your numbers, it's because you've not deleted your previous one. Or you can just call it something different, so call it F instead of frequency. This time I've got grouped data. So I don't actually know where each piece of data lies. I know I've got 4 pieces of data between 0 and 10, but I don't know whether they're at like 2, 4, 4, 4, or whether they're at 1, 1, 1, 1, or if they're equally spaced out between them. I have no idea where they are. So it could be like 2.5, 5, 7.5, and 10. So all I can do is estimate all of my answers, and any exam question will say estimate the mean, estimate this. It doesn't mean just guess, it means work it out in this way, but we need to be aware it's not an exact value, so that's something to always mention as well. So we're going to have to estimate what the group's worth using the midpoint. So I'm going to put the midpoint of 5 in, and I'm estimating that some of those 4 pieces of data are smaller than 5, some of them are probably going to be bigger than 5, so they're probably going to cancel out to be worth about 5 each time. So for the next group, I'm going to have 15. For the group after, I'm going to have 25 and then 35. And then my frequency was 4, 9, 13, and 8. And then we do it in exactly the same way. So we go to Menu, Statistics, Stats Calculations, One Variable. So this time my variable is the journey time to school. And then from here, we've got the X variable, which is basically asking where's the data. So the data is the journey time to school. So the frequency list is just asking me where's the frequency, so the 4, 9, 13, and 8. So that's under the column called frequency. And then everything else I'm just leaving like as it is. The only one we're really interested in is the first result column, which is just asking me where to put the result. Normally it will just give you the next available column, but occasionally if you've got like a lot of things that you've already done, you might need to change this. But I just tend to leave it as it is. So it's just saying it's dropping the results into column C and D. And then again, we get the mean. We can find the standard deviation. And then if we wanted to draw any sort of box plot, we've got all the information for that as well down the bottom. Okay.